The first learning objective in Chapter 7 is to identify different procedures for increasing or decreasing behavior. To increase a behavior, reinforce it. Notice the behavior is reinforced, not the individual. It's not that the rat was reinforced for pressing the lever. Instead, the rat's lever pressing was reinforced by food delivery or whatever. Whether reinforcement is continuous or intermittent, and no matter what the schedule, some reinforcement produces more behavior than no reinforcement. What does Chapter 7 say to do to decrease a behavior? You punish it. The behavior, that is, not the rat or the child. So reinforcement increases behavior and punishment decreases behavior. But there's more. Figure 7.1 in the textbook identifies 2 types of reinforcement, and 2 types of punishment. What are the 2 types of reinforcement and punishment, and what's the difference between them? Reinforcement can be positive or negative. So can punishment. In this context, positive and negative don't mean good and bad. Reinforcement and punishment don't refer to good and bad either. In this case, positive means a stimulus is presented or added to the environment. Negative means a stimulus is removed or omitted. Let's go over some examples. Rewarding a dog for performing a new trick with a dog treat. What's the behavior? What's the stimulus that changes after the behavior occurs, aka the consequence? Is something added or removed? Does the behavior increase or decrease? Use all of that information to figure out what quadrant does this contingency belong in. This is positive reinforcement. The behavior is the new trick. The consequence of that behavior is that the dog gets a treat. The treat is a stimulus that's added, so this is positive. The effect is that the behavior increases. The behavior of performing the trick is more likely in the future, so this is reinforcement, so positive reinforcement. It's important to note that positive reinforcement doesn't have to involve rewards or good behavior. It just has to be something added that increases a behavior. For example, imagine a little kid who's acting up in school and maybe doing it for the attention, right? The behavior might be acting up, talking, joking around, goofing off, whatever. The consequence of that behavior might be that the teacher yells at that student, right? That's the attention that the student is getting. If the result is that the student acts up even more, then we would say that yelling positively reinforces acting up, even though acting up is quote unquote bad behavior, and yelling was meant to or intended to discourage the acting up. How about timeout for swearing? What's the behavior? What's the consequence? The effect on the behavior? And what quadrant does this contingency belong in? This is negative punishment. The behavior is swearing, and the consequence is the timeout. Timeout is removal of access to toys or games or friends. So it's negative. You're removing something. The effect is that the behavior decreases, so that's punishment. How about getting burned for touching a hot skillet? What are the behavior, the consequence, the effect, and the quadrant? Well, the behavior is touching a hot skillet. The consequence is getting burned. So you're adding pain, maybe burnt skin. So this is adding something, so it's positive. The effect is that the behavior decreases. Right? You're going to be less likely to touch a hot skillet in the future. So this is positive punishment. And just like positive reinforcement doesn't have to involve good behavior or rewards, positive punishment does not have to be designedly aversive and doesn't have to involve bad behavior. For example, imagine an overbearing mother says to their adult child, like, "Oh, honey, I love that outfit you're wearing. You look so stylish." The behavior is wearing that outfit. And the consequence is intended as a compliment, right? You look so stylish. But if the result is that the son stops wearing the outfit, then that compliment functions as positive punishment for wearing the outfit. Finally, driving around a pothole is negative reinforcement. The behavior in this case might be something like careful driving, keeping your eyes on the road, slowing down, turning the steering wheel, and the consequence is missing the pothole. So you're avoiding a stimulus, so this is negative. And then the effect is that the behavior of driving carefully increases, which makes this reinforcement, so negative reinforcement. There are actually two types of negative reinforcement. Escape is taking action to remove a stimulus. If you drive over a bumpy road, feel a bump, and then slow down for a smoother ride, you're escaping the consequence of putting extra wear and tear on your car. Avoidance is taking preventative action so the stimulus is never presented in the first place. If you're already driving carefully, you might see the pothole and turn your steering wheel before you run over it, so you never feel the bump at all. The consequence is avoided. We'll go over both of these a little more in the next video. For now, which Homer belongs in what quadrant?